Hello, everybody, and welcome to the LFC Transfer Room live stream with myself, Chad, and Carter. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Before we get into some major news today, we just want to do a little bit of housekeeping. Please make sure to like and subscribe and help us reach that 10k mark. We're so close so far, just another 200 guys in, and we'll have some great content coming forward for you guys. And also, if you've done that already, if you've liked and subscribed, thank you so much. Make sure you have your bell notification on for all future videos and streams. I myself will be doing a new segment of our Player of the Month award, which should be coming out hopefully this weekend. And also as well, we have a new segment every Monday or Tuesday, whichever day it comes out, called In Case You Missed It, which will be myself again going over the week's biggest news, and a couple of them will be from today, going over the week's biggest news stories and recapping them. If you miss any streams during the week, it'll all be recapped with the biggest highlights in those videos. So make sure you have your bell notification on for that. But without further ado, let us get into the live stream and the biggest news that we have. Kylian Mbappe. We've been talking about him all summer. We were wondering if our lack of signings towards the end of the window was waiting to see what would occur with his issues, and if his potential signing by Real Madrid would then trigger a domino effect and lead to us purchasing somebody with the likes of Tchouaméni, who would possibly be a casualty of financial fair play in Spain, but that never came to pass, and we ended up with Endo and Ryan Gravenberch, which I don't think at this point many people will complain about. Those were two fantastic signings as they're turning out to be. But L'Equipe, who is the very, very, very prominent French newspaper and reporter, and is always very prominent in how they rate players and their stingy ratings. They very rarely give top ratings to any player. They've come out and they have said that Liverpool have never cut contact with Kylian Mbappe, and they've always remained in contact, and an arrival for the Frenchman to Merseyside should not be ruled out, which I think is some fantastic news, along with the fact that he hasn't come out and said, I want X or Y, or I want Liverpool, or I want Real Madrid. I feel like he's playing the field, but there are some of the not so optimistic of us that would believe that maybe this is just agent talk to hopefully try and get Real Madrid to pony up as quick as possible and get him signed maybe in a pre-agreement contract by the time he ends. But the prospect of getting Kylian Mbappe on a free, Chad, it is beggars belief to how much he could do for our team, especially on the looming instance that Mohamed Salah may leave us in the summer. But would you consider Kylian Mbappe the closest thing to a Mo Salah replacement that we could possibly get?
Honestly, yes. He can play on that side. He can play on the right hand side. He has a good left foot. He has obviously his right foot is legendary. But we spoke about this during the beginning of the season, during the transfer, and we said the possibilities that we will try to blow smoke so they can try to build up noise for Mbappe and help the agent get more money. But at the end of the day, for me, it is a realistic thing because one, he is a Nike athlete. Behind Cristiano Ronaldo, he's one of the biggest Nike athletes. We have a big deal with Nike, as well as one of the biggest Nike athletes in the whole world, which is LeBron James. So there is a possibility for us to have a negotiation with a player like Mbappe and say, look, you don't go to Real Madrid, who is sponsored by Adidas. They are going to you're going to lose value. It's similar to how Ronaldo lost value when he moved to Real Madrid, and Adidas sponsor. They wouldn't be able to sell enough. Again, it being very profitable for Nike to have him in the Nike, especially for club and country, and it'll help put also when it comes to his finances, because at the end of the day, he has a big contract. That is a big worry, is the contract size and how much you're going to fork over, because Liverpool has been a very stingy team in terms of giving players big wages. I mean, Mohamed Salah is the only one that actually broke through the 300 barrier, per week when it comes to wages. So for us, it is a realistic target. It is. And it's realistic in the sense of finance. It's realistic in the sense of the player need. It's realistic in the sense of the player want as well. Mbappe would love, especially the team that we're building now, and be a part of something that, Klopp 2.0 team that can now challenge again, because remember, we have goals. This team is not yet to win for the seasons coming up. So adding a player like Mbappe to help carry that team forward, especially if most decides to.
You there, Chad? I think you've gone.
Can you see me? I'm still
Yeah,
there?
we can. Yeah, well, you're back now. Sorry, you lost you there for a moment.
Sorry about that. He fits into a system in terms of the way he play. Enrique used to play, the way Poch used to play at PSG. It's very similar to Liverpool in the sense that we position based. We play with the forwards, allow them to run inside and out. So yeah, it's a big fit for us, and it is a possibility. The only thing is, it's the idea of Mbappe, world class player, Liverpool. Who is Liverpool? Will Mbappe decide to come to Liverpool? A lot of people think that might be a step down for him instead of going to the Galacticos of Barcelona and Real Madrid. So for me, it's a realistic target. I hope we do go for him. I hope we get him for free. And see what Nike can offer us and help us out.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you say that about Nike because he wears Jordan gear with PSG, but Jordan is technically owned by Nike too. So Nike are getting money out of him either way.
Yeah. Exactly, and we have the fourth kit where we have LeBron's little thingy on it. So it could be a similar thing where, like says LeBron, look at we can make a fourth kit for you at Liverpool, and you put your little badge there, and then the possibilities in us. And we have FSG. Yes, we criticize them of being how stingy they are, and they don't give the club a lot, but they're also very smart investors, and this is a very smart investment for them to be able to use the assets that they have to create their number. Because then imagine Mbappe shirts, at Liverpool, the numbers that they're gonna get. So it's a very smart thing, and for me, it's like something that's very obvious, but not a lot of people think it's very obvious because of the name of Liverpool and the name of Mbappe. And Mbappe's name is greater than Liverpool, some will say, but I have to disagree.
No, I agree with what you're saying, that if we were to get him on a free, it would be absolutely phenomenal business. But Carter, I think this is just paper talk from agents leaking some stories to L'Equipe and just trying it. Like he's made it known, and he's already flirted with the fact that he wants to go to Madrid, and that PSG were fearful during the end of the summer transfer window that he had already signed an agreement with Madrid. And it just, as Lee points out there, this is a question that I have as well. Bit of a prima donna, seems to come with a bit of an attitude, clearly, as we've seen with how much he demanded from PSG in regards to some ownership stake, some opinions and what's the word I'm looking for? Opinions and power in the player decisions and the director of football decisions. And as Lee mentions here, he kind of fails the no dickheads test that we normally have. In saying that, do you think that this is very much paper talk from an agent to try and get Real Madrid to jump as quick as possible? Or if we were to sign him, do you think he would pass the no dickheads test, and would he gel in with the squad quite well? Because as Paul pointed out earlier, he's fantastic with the ball, but he's a passenger without it. He doesn't seem to want to press or put much effort in. But that can be coached out of him, I think, at this young age.
I do agree. I do think it is largely paper talk, because obviously he probably will end up at Real Madrid at one point. Maybe it's 3 years, maybe it's next year, but he will probably end up at Real Madrid. So it's just, you're not going to just say to Madrid that they're the only team you want to sign for. You're going to be like, we're having discussions with other teams. We're talking to Liverpool, Man City. Maybe in a few years' time, they'd be discussing with Newcastle. But he'll have a lot of offers and a lot of money, so it's just good for him to do that. But I also do think that, as it was said before, it is such a good investment for Mbappe. Like, if you think how Man United sort of bridged the gap and surpassed us in terms of like value of the club, if FSG had Mbappe for 5 years, you can imagine how much money does that add to the evaluation. Maybe they go to sell in 5 years' time and he's increased the value of the club by £1 billion. We've won more Champions Leagues. We've got the biggest shirt sponsor deals. We've got all of that. So it makes sense from that point of view. And obviously there was the report that they had him on the jet when he was in Monaco, on John Henry's jet, and flew him around or whatever. So I think there is a genuine interest, and there is probably like a large respect from Mbappe to a lot of our squad. Maybe on like a team like Arsenal, where they're all quite young and up and coming. There's obviously guys like Salah and Van Dijk and Trent, who obviously are all players Mbappe would like to play with. But I think a big issue for us is it would mean that Salah would have to go, because there's no way we'd afford. I'd almost see it as being you'd pay for his wages with the money you'd get from Saudi Arabia for Mo Salah. So that is kind of like almost a perfect sort of full circle. But I do really think it's just paper talk.
Yeah, I'll post the question to everybody in the chat, as well as both yourself and Carter, Chad. Right now, if Mo Salah leaves in January, just hypothetically, Mo Salah leaves in January, would you take Mbappe as a straight flat replacement? Money comes in for Salah, money goes straight out for Mbappe, and it's a straight swap straight away. Whatever the funding is, but on a straight swap, would you take that offer?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, obviously, Mbappe with his age and Salah's age, it's Mbappe still needs to get to his okay, how can I say, the prime age where he's still young, he's still good condition. Yeah, and another thing I wanted to talk about was the Lee comment about how he's a big head, and he has has a very solid head in terms of what his demands are at PSG. The thing is also PSG is how can I say this? PSG is a pushover team in the sense that they know they have the money, they know they have the finance. There's no one else to compete around it. It's PSG or nothing, basically. If you go to Real Madrid, you can't do that. If he goes to Barcelona, you can't do it. If he leaves France, he won't be able to have the same kind of big-headed ideas of, okay, I want percentages out of ownerships, I want this, I want that. It's not going to happen. PSG is there because PSG was financed. Basically, it's a finance. That's where the money is. It's all about money. So to be able to talk about it and be able to speak about, okay, I'm the money maker, I'm the guy that makes the money for you guys. That's easy to do at PSG. You can't do that in any other club. And that's where I feel like it could be a reality check depending on what team he goes to. If he goes to Real Madrid, he's going to go there. It's going to be a Cristiano Ronaldo. He's going to bring the numbers in, but he's not going to have any kind of say in what happens around the team, around the club, etc. And that. So for me, I get it. He's a prima donna now. He seems like he is a prima donna, but at the same time, PSG is making it very easy for him to step over them. So for me, if Salah goes, I'll take Mbappe 100%. There's no questions about it. If he's available, you throw all the money that you can and get him. He's just going to make the team even better, And like you were saying, his play style where he doesn't come back, that's the thing that Klopp can train into him. That's the thing that Klopp can make sure that he understands. Listen, as much as you give us going forward, you need to help us coming back as well. That's how we get what we want out of this agreement or this partnership. So for me, there's not for a Salah replacement. 100% is Mbappe, because there's not a lot of other players that can fill Salah's shoes for our team at the current moment. So yeah, it's a no-brainer for me on my side.
Carter, how about yourself? Straight swap in January. Mo Salah leaves, Mbappe comes in. To give the hypothetical 150 million in, 150 million out. Straight swap. Would you take that deal, or would you rather stick with Salah?
I think I'd have to take it. It's just age and everything. But I think sort of to the points of him being maybe a bit lazy, I feel like, I don't know if any of you watched, the segment that Gary O'Neill had on, was it Monday Night or Friday Night Football, when he's like, once players see that it works, they'll buy into it. And obviously Pedro Neto and Mbappe, there's a big difference. But when you look at the team Mbappe played in, he had himself, Neymar, Messi, and Verratti, who are all maybe not the most, at those stages of their career, the most press heavy, the most athletic players. Although they're all really unbelievable players, it's not really worth, he probably looks and goes, it's not worth me pressing. But if he came to Liverpool and he's in a really strong, coherent system with like Jones, Szoboszlai, Nunez, maybe like Diaz or something, that in that team he'd go, if I actually press, I'm going to get 5 or 6 more goals. I'm going to get 5 or 6 more assists. So I think he'll actually look at it and go, it will be effective to do this. Like all what you got to think is Mbappe wants to be the best player ever. And that's why he probably does get the thing of, he wants this, he's got an attitude. But I don't think for us that would be a bad thing. I think it would almost counter out Klopp being a bit too loyal. Whereas Mbappe is the type of player to come in like Rooney did when Man United sold, I think it was Ronaldo, and go to the manager and say, who are we signing? Like, I want to win things. I don't want to come second to City or have a year when we're fighting for fourth. I think for the whole club, it would just be very good for the culture. I know it might go badly, but I do think his just desire to win would be a positive.
See, when you say it might go badly, we look to our former rivals, because they're not really on the same level as us at the moment. But if we look over to the likes of United, they have 4 to 5 players that are on nearly 500k a week, Casemiro being one of them. And I understand age is a different thing, but when he was brought in from Real Madrid at the time, he was considered one of the best CDMs in the world. And when he was brought in, he just had a complete fall off, be it the change in system, be it the change in team, be it the weather, be it whatever it was. But my fear is that he'll come in, get a massive wage, fuck off everybody who was here for years before him that have won everything. Similarly to how we discussed the Jude Bellingham salary previously, who's on nearly 500,000 pounds a week before to after tax. More 20 million in sign-on bonus, 20 million to his dad, 20 million to his agent. That's 60 million alone in sign-on fees paid for Szoboszlai. And then it's a near $500 million deal. It's, to me, I wouldn't like him coming purely because he would come in, demand such a high wage when you have the likes of Virgil, and it's not how Liverpool conducts business, in my own opinion. We don't go and sign those major, well-made, done superstars. I seen somebody tweet it earlier today, and it's like, have we ever really signed a major superstar? I think maybe Alisson and Van Dijk were probably the only ones in recent memory. But somebody then commented under it and said, we don't sign superstars, we make them. And I think that's the type of team that this is right now. And it's just, I think bringing in somebody such as Mbappe, however hypothetical it may seem, I feel would completely ruin the culture. I get what you're saying, Carter, that he never needed to do it when he was over in PSG, but he also demanded that he own half the fucking club. Like, he also demanded that he got ownership, he got director of football duties, that he got the sun, moon, and the stars. And within 12 months, he said, I'm up, I'm gone, I want to go somewhere else. And he had to be negotiated out of a lot of concessions that he had already been made into his contract, which allowed him to then come back to footballing duties. People kind of are quick to forget the fact that he threw all of his toys out of the pram this summer and wanted to leave. I think he would mess the culture up completely. We have a very, like, you seen Dominic Szoboszlai walking around in his red dressing gown today, and and just walking around the training ground. It's like you know what the Liverpool clubhouse reminds me of? A bunch of guys at college that are just having the best of time and love hanging. It's the boys, for lack of a better term. And I think bringing in a big head honcho like Mbappe may mess with the chemistry a little bit in that. But I can also see the positives on it of bringing in somebody of that renown that could possibly replace Salah step for step, who is also nearly 10 years his junior. I just worry that big of an ego coming in of somebody who thinks he's bigger than the club would completely mess with the flow and the chemistry that we have at the moment.
But I also want to maybe say, sorry, Stephen, cutting you off, but I also want to maybe ask you the question about wouldn't it be a pressure on him as well to succeed? Because we look at Haaland, Haaland won the treble. Coming to Liverpool, a team with history and culture, coming to a Premier League where it's the best league in the world. And if you come here, I mean, look at, who's the side, that guy that, I think it was Falcao, that Man United signed back in the day. And he came and he had a rubbish season. And then he went to Chelsea for a loan as well, and he was rubbish as well. But he came with a big head because he's Falcao. I come from Atletico Madrid. I'm winning the league with Atletico. I'm the star of the La Liga. I've taken out the two giants. and then he came to Man United and he got taken down himself. So I get what you're saying when it comes to, you know, having someone that come into the league that the team that might think that they're better than the team and try to like walk around like, you know, I'm the guy, I'm the king of the castle. I get those concerns, but at the same time, let's remember that we have a manager and a team that where the egos get checked at the door immediately. You know, we look at Soboslai, you look at McAllister, World Cup winner coming into the team. These guys fit into the team because for one, they all very similar in age. They all have very similar ideals, and you know, someone that watches the inside Liverpool and inside Anfield, you see that they're all very close in age and all very close in ideas of how life is, and you know, they're very similar in that kind of sense. And like to your point, the college thing, it's a big college campus. They're all in this college. You know, I forgot the word, but the whole college dorm kind of feel. So yes, 100%. I mean, your fears are 100% correct, and in terms of the what a big name player will come into the team and do for us off the field, but on the field, he will learn quickly that this is not the French league, this is not PSG. And I feel like we might get the Monaco Mbappe, the guy that was hungry to be the best, and not the guy that is the best and is full now. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, no,
yeah.
I agree. It can go both ways. It can be the best move that we could ever have done, or it could blow up in our face and we could turn into Man United. That's the way I look at this. This would be the tipping point.
So you're saying that if with this Mbappe move, it'll breed for more moves similar to Mbappe, where we start signing stars instead of building stars?
Not so much signing rather than building, but it would have a domino effect, I feel, of similarly to the Bellingham situation. And Carter, feel free to chime in here if you disagree or agree or whatever you want. That if we were to sign Jude Bellingham for those fees, the likes of a Van Dijk, the likes of a Mo Salah, the likes of people that have been there for years and done the slog and have worn blood, sweat, and tears onto the badge. Trent, for example, the single greatest right back of the past 5 to 6 years, is on less than 200k. This boy comes in from the Bundesliga, who technically really hasn't won anything, and is on more than double his wage immediately. It would, if I was Trent, I'd be sat there and I'd sort of be thinking, who's this guy coming in earning double than me? I have a Champions League, I have a Premier League, I have Carabao Cup, I have an FA Cup, I have a Europa Super League, I have a Europa Super Cup, I have the Club World Cup, I have multiple awards under me, and this kid comes in and just blows me out of the water with salary. What's that got to do with it? I'm one of the best right backs in the world. I lead in assists. I've fantastic from set pieces. And then multiply that attitude by 30, and that's everybody else in the team wanting more and more. There's only a finite amount of a pie that everybody can pull a piece from, and I just feel that would then cause a snowball effect. The Mount signing for United is probably the best example that I could give. He came in, done nothing, and started earning more than most of the guys there. I think he's on about 250k to 300k a week, thereabouts. That's more than some guys that have been there for years and have earned the salary that they're on, as shit as they are, have earned the salary that they're on. If you come in and you have Virgil van Dijk, who was second in a Ballon d'Or that he should have won in 2019, and if you had a Jude Bellingham or you had a Kylian Mbappe come in and earn more than double than what he's on, he'd throw his toys out the pram too. It undervalues so many of the players that are currently on the team. That's my own personal view on it. But it could also turn around and work out fantastic. If Mbappe came in and said, I'll take 200k a week, I'd be like, yes, please, no problem. 200k a week and whatever bonuses, sound, no problem. 200k a week, absolutely no problem. Get you on a free and pay 200k a week, no problem. But I don't think he's going to do that, because I think he's going to go to a place like Real Madrid, but they are going to end up letting people go because of that signing to stay within financial fair play, which is where I think we could get something on a bargain basis that way. I think there's some players there that we could find. And as well in other markets, I believe, as Paul pointed out a little bit earlier, we have more pressing matters. We need a 6, we need a left centre back, and we need a full back, either right or left, one or the other. We need reinforcements on the back end of our team rather than the front end of it. But we've nearly been talking about Mbappe now for a half an hour. I kind of want to move on from him because I'll get sick of talking about him, and I think everybody in the comments is a little bit sick of talking about him at that. It's jokes of hosts can chat so much crap to justify their nonsense. Please clarify what nonsense would that be, because I think we've made some very valid points. I think Carter's made some valid points. I think Chad has made some very valid points. It's a debate here, so if you feel that we're chatting nonsense, by all means, please feel free. If you don't like the content, by all means, go for it. If you don't like us, you don't like the content, by all means, go for it. But if you want to put an opinion into the chat and we'll have a bit of a discussion about it, again, by all means, feel free. We're all open to having a discussion here, so go for it if you want. But moving on from Mbappe, and if Cole wants to comment, we'll come back from Klopp had his presser today, and he discussed 2 of our players in which injury concerns have been a little bit of an issue so far, that being Thiago Alcantara and Stefan Bajcetic. Klopp has come out and said that Thiago is going to be another 4 weeks before he's back. I'll take that with a pinch of salt. I don't think he'll be back. I think he's kicked his last ball in the Premier League. I think he should be shot out of a cannon come January. Myself, not on his playing ability, because when he's on the pitch, he's fantastic. But the issue is when he's on the pitch. I'll start with Thiago, and I'll ask both my panel mates here, and I'll ask the chat as well. Has he kicked his last ball for Liverpool? Carter, do you think he's ever going to put on a Liverpool shirt again? Maybe towards the end of the season? Do you think he'll come back at all?
Honestly, I actually think that we're going to probably see Thiago for at least 4 more years. Because I think if he was maybe 3 years left, I think we should probably look to move him on just because of the wage he's on. But because his contract finishes, I think he'd probably be able to go in and say, we're going to have a lower deal. We're going to have more incentivized. Like, if you play, you get more money. And that way, I think it allows us to keep a sort of a senior head, because you've got to remember a lot of our midfield is very young and unexperienced at the top level. Like, Thiago's played in World Cups and has played in Champions League year on year. And I just think we have lost a lot of the old guard. And if then maybe, as we said, Salah leaves, like if Matip leaves, we do now start leaving ourselves quite thin in terms of senior players. And I do think now we have such a big squad, and you think the Champions League then goes from 6 group games to 10 group games next year. Like, there's still the cup games. It's just good to have a full midfield, because that's the thing. I always have this like argument. I think having 1 or 2 slightly injury prone players allows you to have a better squad, because if everyone, you can't have 7 unbelievable world-class midfielders if you can only play 3 every week. But if you have one guy who's kind of a bit injured and a bit in and out, it just allows you to have, like, I'd rather have Thiago than Scott McTominay, if that makes sense. Like, I'd rather have Thiago fit for 30% of the games than a Scott McTominay who's fit for 100. But obviously you have to have a good enough team on the other side, which we do now have.
See, the problem comes in there, Carter, the fact that he's on 200k a week sitting and burning a hole in our pocket. That's where my issue comes in. It's all well and good being great. Like, in my opinion, availability is the best ability. If you're worth 200 grand a week, you need to be able to show it on the pitch. He's our 3rd highest earner, I think that's about right. He's our 3rd highest earner, and he plays 30% of the games. I get what you mean though by saying you'd rather him for 30 games than Scott McTominay for 100 games. But with the amount, like our quad year, we went to 63 games. If you're not good enough to get minutes in 63 different games, you shouldn't be playing for Liverpool. I think he'd actually be better suited as possibly a midfielder coach. I think he'd be better moving onto the staff than he would as a player. But I think when he plays, he's just so silky smooth. He's beautiful. He's a luxury player. I love him, and I'd love if he was still fit for more. And I get what you mean when you say injuries are a part of it. But as I mentioned, like you can play a maximum of up to 63 games in a season. You're going to get minutes one way or another. And even if I think at the moment we have a very strong midfield that are happy to, rotate. Like Gravenberch is happy to come in and out. Szoboszlai seems happy to come in and out. And I think the Europa League this year has been a blessing. But I get what you mean. I'd love to keep him. I'd love if he was still fit, because he'd walk into that midfield right now without question. It's just it's the problem that he's not fit, unfortunately. Chad, similar question to yourself, as Carter mentioned. Would you rather have Thiago for a limited number of games, or would you rather have somebody else on a cheaper contract for double or triple the games that Thiago could appear for on a quality basis?
Yeah, 100%. I would rather have Bajcetic than Thiago. I mean, Bajcetic is a young star. He's building up his game. We saw last season that he can play in this league. He can play in this team. He can start, and he can demand a starting jersey if he wants. If he gets himself to a full fitness and get himself to a place where he can perform on a weekly basis, 100%. I think I'll take him over a Thiago that plays only 10 games a season. There's also a possibility of Trent moving to the midfield. We saw against Bournemouth, Trent moving into the 6. There's a possibility of him also doing that. I mean, we have a lot of quality players in our midfield. We have a lot of midfielders that are young and hungry. We about 5 midfielders that can rotate into the team. We have Gravenberch, like you said, that came into the team that is now showing his quality and showing his reason why we so many people are hungry to buy him. We have Szoboszlai and McAllister who are undroppable at the moment. You have Jones that is still fighting for his position back. You have Elliott, who's also showing that he's still capable of playing. So at the moment you can see that we don't miss Thiago at the moment. No one can say indefinitely, okay, we must. Thiago's a big must. It's not that case. That's why we can talk so freely about him leaving on a free, because at the end of the day, we already have numbers that are willing to play and are available to play. I mean, even with Curtis Jones, with his suspension, he'll still be able to play the Thursday night games, the Wednesday night FA Cup and League Cup games. So for me, Thiago, I think this is his last season. He might show up during the end of the last stretch of the season. He might show up and play a few games, have his farewell tour. But for me, there's better options for the position that he's not currently filling. So
yeah.
And the money, like you said, the money you take off the money, you can give it to someone else.
It's 10 million a year, 10.5 million a year is what he's on at the moment.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So you can give it to people that are showing that they're ready for the game and they want to play the game. As much as Thiago is a talent, and he's a brilliant talent. I think he's one of the best midfielders we've had in the last couple of seasons, just on talent alone, and like you said, he's a luxury, and unfortunately with luxuries, you only get them once every few months, So Thiago, thanks for, but we have.
Paul makes an excellent point. Yeah, Paul makes an excellent point. Just no player can work in class midfield when they lose their legs. Thiago is fantastic, but Father Time and injuries is undefeated. Not unless you're Tom Brady, and he only retired because his missus broke up with him. But that's about it, really. I think he's the only one, and LeBron James, that is still somehow going. First of all, I want to say hi to Fluminense for Foreigners. If you have any news on Andre, please let us know. I know he's playing tomorrow in the Copa Libertadores final. If anybody wants to watch that and watch future Liverpool signing, you can. It's on at 8 p.m. on BBC Three in the UK. Whatever you need to stream for that. Should be a good game. It's essentially their Champions League final. So hopefully it'll be a great game. I'm looking forward to it. I'm definitely going to be watching it. Jay Muse bet me to it. Any recent news on Andre? Oh, like mine's beautiful. On to Stefan Bajcetic then, Carter. It's similar. I think we were discussing it just before the stream started with the what's his name, Højlund, how he has stress fractures in his back, and Klopp has come out in the presser today and said that his body's growing. He doesn't want to rush him into playing against bigger, more physical people for fear of a prolonged, lingering injury, which is something that I can understand. At the end of the day, he's 17. He's growing, I think, and he's going to be growing until he's about the age of 25. But realistically, he's obviously in a very molding state right now, if you want to call it that. Are you happy to sort of have him sit and work on his fitness and work on his physical attributes for the time being, and maybe come through maybe the under 20s, under 21s, and the under 18 squads for the time being now, considering him playing against much more bigger and physical players like he would be in the Premier League and in some of the cup games and Europa League games? I think it's a right decision for the long term, because I think we have a special player on our hands. What do you think?
I think we just need to be, it's just managing the player. Like, if you think what happened to Kate Gordon, he came on, looked really impressive in the cup game against Arsenal. And then I think he's just been having like issues with growth spurt and like a sort of an issue. So we do just need to manage Bajcetic. And I am really excited by him. But at the same time, I do just think, how many teams like win trophies with 19-year-old defensive midfielders?
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. If you even look at like Ajax 1995, 96, the guy who was playing DM, if I'm not wrong, was maybe Rijkaard. So even young teams tend to have more senior players there. So then I will kind of think, well, maybe you play him in the left 8. But then at the same time, you've got Gravenberch, Curtis Jones, McAllister. Like, we've just got a lot of players. And that's the only thing. I think he's really good. Like, I think he's really promising. I probably think out of all of the sort of the ceilings of those players, I'd probably say him and Gravenberch from sort of the left sided 8 are probably the two who could be the best. But I just think we're going to have a difficulty with managing, with giving him enough minutes in sort of proper games, because there's no, like, playing to lose is good. It's good minutes, but you want to play against the best players. You want to improve.
Yeah.
And that's where, like, where does he get tested? Because if you have all those guys, it's like them saying, McAllister's like, I've won World Cup, so I want to play against Man City. Gravenberch is like, Klopp, you told me I'm going to play the big games. Curtis Jones is like, I'm playing really, really well. So it's just where does he get enough minutes? Because I do think no matter what playing, it's like if we played Quansah at centre-half for 10 games, he might cost us 2 games just because he's a young player. Like, it's just where you manage it now, because we are in because of the age of Alisson and Van Dijk and Salah, we are in such a win now position that it's like, can you take the risk? Like it is, I remember when we got 97 points and we lost, and you're like, every game is horrible. Like every game, you're actually almost dreading watching the games, because if we go down 1-0, you're like, oh, title's over. You're like, City, you just have to win every game.
Yeah.
So I just don't know where, I think it's probably a good thing, but I just don't know in sort of the big games or in important games. I feel like his minutes will just drop off towards the end of the year. So I just don't know what's going to happen with him.
It's something that I actually, as a lot of people are of the same opinion in the chat, it's we need to look after him. He is a very, very, very special player. He could be an absolute demon in the center of the pitch. And if he's going to continue to grow, he's about 5'10", 5'11" at the minute. And if he's growing, he could hit 6'2" very, very quickly. As men's bodies continue to grow until they're about the age of 25, and you kind of hit what's called second puberty. Well, I did anyway. I looked from the age of up until the age of about 19. I looked like somebody took a 12-year-old by the ankles and the head and just stretched them. Then all of a sudden, I filled out and became a fat bastard. But that just happens, and it's the way the body works, and everybody works at a different rate. So I think it's a fantastic thing for him to be on a personal training program, to be able to fit his body in against bigger, more physical opponents. I think maybe towards the latter of the year, he might play in some cup games. I'd like to see him back to play in some cup games. But to the point that myself and yourself made, Carter, before the stream started, is that we don't want him to end up like Rasmus Højlund, where he has stress fractures, and that's a career-long injury that needs to be managed, because United are already looking to bring in somebody to help their £72 million signing that they brought in from Italy. for whatever reason. It's just stupid, but that's United's business. And look, no matter how bad it gets with us, at least we can laugh at United. That's the way I look at it. Chad, are you of a similar opinion that you'd like to see Stefan maybe come in and play some early cup games? We're getting to the point now that we're probably kind of going to go past those games. Maybe if we have first spot in Europa locked up by the time the last 2 games roll around, we could see an appearance from Stefan then to come out and maybe get a bit of game time and get some run in. Or do you think wrap him in bubble wrap, let him develop a little bit more in the youth teams, and then resurface with ourselves again then?
Yeah, we have, like everyone's saying, we have a fantastic talent in Bajcetic, and the games that he played last season, he showed that he has a talent in terms of the knowledge of the game and understanding of where he needs to play and where he needs to be. So the mindset of him is already developed, and it's going to continue developing, especially if we have people like Thiago that's in the team that you can talk to and have a few words about. You see the guys like McAllister and Szoboszlai playing on a daily basis. You can talk to them and see how they're going. But in terms of body-wise, I think it's a great move for Klopp. I mean, Klopp is one of those guys that you won't rush into making big decisions. I mean, when Fabinho came in, he took Fabinho off the season to get used to the Premier League before he started playing on a regular basis. So we need to look after our assets and allow him to develop the way he needs to develop to get to a point where we can say, okay, you know what, here's the keys to the castle. We are comfortable with you now, holding charge and to make sure that we are safe and we can protect our castle. So I think it's a great move from Klopp. I think early. It depends on how the draw is for FA Cup. Early games in the FA Cup, maybe giving a couple of games. Again, like you said, if we win the group, which hopefully we do, I feel like we will do against the next opponent. I think it is Union.
Toulouse.
It's Toulouse still. Oh yeah, Toulouse. You have to go to the reverse. Yeah, sorry. If we beat Toulouse against Union and Lask, I feel like he might get a game. It's just allow him to grow and allow him to build. I mean, the plan wasn't for him to be in the team automatically. Like Paul said last season, the only reason why he played was because the midfield was rubbish. So we had to find options, and he was one of the options that we saw on the shelf. So at the moment, we don't need that. He's not a dire need for us to be in the team, especially if we can get to January and you can sign someone that can fit into the 6 or fit into the midfield and allow the midfield to solidify and be stronger. Then we will need him for a couple of games. So allow him to develop. I see he might have a big impact during the course of the second half of the season, then from next season onwards. But from now, just allow him to relax, let him get in his feet, let him get himself situated, let him deal with his puberty at the moment, and then we'll see what kind of star we have at the end of the season.
I think we have an absolute special talent on our hands. It is going to be very interesting. Before we move on to the next topic, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping. Just if everybody could, if you haven't already, please do like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. We're trying to get to 10K hopefully before the next transfer window. Make sure you leave a like on this video as well if you've enjoyed it. If you'd like to leave any suggestions for what you'd like us to do, please put them in the comments on the video as well after the stream has ended, because if it comes up now, it won't show up on the stream that it's ended. I don't know why it works that way. It just works that way. Any of the comments that we have here now don't show up on the stream after it finishes. It's a bit weird unless I'm being stupid and I'm missing it. If you have already liked and subscribed and you've liked the video, thank you so much. Please make sure you have your bell notification on for all future videos. We're going to have our Player of the Month video coming out from myself, hopefully either tomorrow or Sunday before the Luton game. And also, we have a new segment as well that comes out on a weekly basis called In Case You Missed It, done by myself as well, where we just recap all the week's biggest news, and there's a couple of big ones in today alone. So if you can't make every stream, don't worry about it. There's always going to be a recap at the beginning of every week of the previous week's news. Last week, it was in relation to the 2 games, the Andy Robertson injury, that feels like so long ago. It's hard to believe that it was just over 10 days ago. It's shocking. It's international breaks. It's fucking me up, man. But make sure you have your bell notification on for all the future streams, and it really does help us out. So something that I did want to bring up is one of the other guys that we've been very much interested in and moving forward, which is a Brazilian youngster with a €55 million release clause, Luis Guilherme. I think I'm pronouncing that right. He is a 17-year-old attacking midfielder, central midfielder, right winger, centre forward, second striker, kind of plays similarly to a Szoboszlai role, maybe a Harvey Elliott role, where he is very much a facilitator with the ball. Currently plays for the Brazilian side, have it here. Let me pronounce it. Palmeiras. I'm sure Fluminense for followers will correct me on the pronunciation of that if they're still in the chat. But from my viewing of him, I've only viewed him very briefly prior to this stream. He's a fantastic advancer of the ball, plays the ball forward beautifully, almost facilitates his team similarly to how Kevin De Bruyne would facilitate his Man City. Now, I'm not calling him Kevin De Bruyne, so don't put me up for that. I'm not calling him Kevin De Bruyne. I'm merely saying that he could be that type of a player. And yes, Paul, I do believe it takes some massive cojones to spend 55 million on a 17-year-old. It's an interesting topic to think about, to bring in somebody similarly to Harvey Elliott, who'll be 3 years his senior. Carter, have you watched much of Luis? Have you seen any of his stats or any of his highlights or anything like that prior to the stream tonight? Or from my description, do you think he's a player profile that'd be able to fit? He's about 5'10", he's like a Fabio Carvalho, is probably the best way to describe him.
So I did watch a bit of Twitter, and I had, because there wasn't too much, so I had to use like TikTok and stuff to just sort of find some clips, because obviously off that you're not going to be able to gauge like how good they are, but you can kind of see like he's quite quick. He looks like he's quite a brave player. Like I think a clip where he flicked the ball over like 3 players' heads, which is always something you want to see. It gets you off your seat. But I think the issue is when you look at 55 million, if you look at the price that Real paid for Endrick, and if you just think like Endrick was 15, this guy's 17, I think turning 18 soon. He's got, I think, 18. I looked 18 league appearances, not many starts. It's only 562 minutes, but he's got 0 goals and 0 assists for a team that's second place in the Brazilian league. So although it is quite short, normally if you look at players like Minamino and Origi would come on and would sort of not stat pad, but they'd come on at the end of games when there's a lot of chances, when we're pushing teams trying to get a goal. So that was the only thing. I'm like, to spend 55 million on someone who hasn't got a goal or an assist, when players like Doku went for 55, 62 million. If you look at how much Arsenal spent on Martinelli, like there's other players, there's like Musa at Bruges, there's a lot more wingers. Like, although this guy, I haven't watched him, so it's 100% different to watching a player in real life or like regularly. But there's definitely going to be players out there who've got more experience, who are physically developed, who are ready, who are more like tailor-made to come in, hit the ground running. Like, you also forget like how big an adjustment it would be for him to go straight from Brazil to England rather than like a Spanish-speaking country or a Portuguese-speaking country. Like, it is going to be completely different. Like, if he was maybe at Benfica now, and this is probably bad to say, I'd almost maybe be, well, yeah, you'd definitely be more like, yeah, because he's playing against better opposition. He's playing in Europe. He's playing in European competition. So I do just think for Liverpool, unless you know this guy is like, I think we all probably heard of Endrick before he signed for Real Madrid, but for his name not to be sort of as big, I think kind of shows that maybe he isn't the one we should be going for, or if he is quite a bit of a risk.
I'd be of similar agreement. I think 55 million for a release clause for a 17-year-old is a bit steep. And Paul brings up an excellent point here in that similarly glamorous things and glowing things are being said about a 17-year-old Ansu Fati. Not a bust, as Paul mentions, but not exactly the world beater that everybody was expecting.
Yeah.
55 million for a 17-year-old. It's a lot of money for somebody that has done nothing. It is a release clause, but at the same time, he'd come in and if you're paying 55 million for a player, you're expecting them to be good enough to start in the first team, in my opinion. But this guy, Luis, I feel he'd be coming in and playing in the under-18s, similarly to Trey Neone, who's a year his junior, who was already lighting that league up, the under-18 Premier League up. And I cannot wait for him. And Trent Cohn-Doherty as well, fellow Irishman as well. I can't wait to see him come through and break through. But with it's the question, I suppose, is 55 million for a 17-year-old that has done nothing. It almost seems as if they know they have a gem on their hands, but it almost seems as if they're daring a big club to be like, come on, come pay it, give us 55 million. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's bait. I think it's It's similar to the Mbappe thing where it's just noise to trying to bring up to attract other people and say, okay, look, we have 50. Let's bolster this guy's reputation. Bolster he's like, he's a 17-year-old. He's playing in this Brazilian team, and he's performing on a regular basis for the junior teams, and now he's breaking through into the first team. So yes, and look, talent is talent, and at the end of the day, if you're good enough to be worth so much money, you need to be able to perform on a regular basis. You've given great examples of Fati and Troy that's playing in the junior teams. These guys are already developing in these big teams. They're already developing in the ideas of the club. With Troy, he's probably training with the first team. I've seen a couple of clips of Luis, obviously on YouTube, like similar to Carter, but he looks like a Coutinho just came out of Inter Milan, just that he has a left foot instead of a right foot. He looks very similar to a Coutinho that's, it's an uncut gem. He still needs to develop a lot of things. So for 55 million, he's not worth it at the moment. He needs to allow him to grow and to see. Let's just give him 2 seasons in the Brazil League. If he does well, then we can maybe see, allow Porto or Benfica or someone in the Portuguese league to take him and then develop him some more, and then we can go for him. But at the moment, no, 55 million will be kind of stupid for us to go for a 17-year-old when we have great youth players in our youth development that are, worth even more, but they're not as, known as this guy is. So, it wouldn't make sense for us to go for 55 million 17-year-old in the Brazil League. No. The development that we have at the moment and the way that we scout these players, all of our players that we're scouting are very, they're all in the UK. They're all based in the UK. They all have brilliant talent that just needs to be developed some more. And they all cost that are cheaper than getting a 55 million guy. So Liverpool's strategy and Liverpool's tactics are born on one of the best in the whole world in terms of recruiting young players. And we just need to allow them to continue doing that instead of, taking a risk on someone that might be a bust or might be a potential star. It's different from saying it's a Neymar or, Edric, who are blowing up the Brazilian league and they're performing beyond anyone's expectation. Then you go, okay, maybe you take a risk. But at the moment, no. I mean, it's like Carter said, you play like less than 20 games. It's not a time to take those chances.
Yeah, I think it's similar to the Levi Colwill situation of £80 million for a guy that's played a combined amount of minutes to accumulate 14 Premier League games. It's a little bit silly. I think it's there to kind of scare off some teams that would be looking at maybe purchasing him and trying to develop him, as you said. But it's a funny one because you the reason that you'd want him is because you'd want him there to be able to develop him so that you don't have to fork out 80 million for him in 5-6 years time. But then at the same time, you'd have to fork out 55 million for him now because I guarantee you they wouldn't take any less than that when they know they're going to end up getting 55 million from him regardless. It's a very...
Yeah, and you must also factor in the Brexit thing. So, it's going to be very hard for him to bring me to the UK in the first place. He doesn't have a Brazilian cap yet, so he doesn't have the work permit. He won't be able to get a work permit anyway, regardless. So there's no point in us bringing him.
But wait, can I just say though? I think though, if now they've changed sort of the thing with Brexit is where the Copa Libertadores, if you play a few games in that you're almost eligible, like to just come in, like you get enough points in the system to come, which is why now like Cisco and players like that, if you think players like who play in Paraguay, because they're all in the Copa Libertadores, it comes to their points. So it's a lot easier now actually to sign these players. So it's harder to sign European players, but I think on the points-based system, it's a lot easier now to sign from South America. And I think a big thing for us though is like, realistically, none of us have actually sit and watched like a game. And I think sometimes if you look at players like if you look at really young players, sometimes you just go, this guy's unbelievably quick. He's unbelievably good dribbler. He can just read the game. He can just see a pass. And that stuff, like just looking at Twitter and like transfer market, we're not going to see. Like, if you think like people are probably, you've maybe played against someone or played with someone who's even maybe gone on to be like pro or semi-pro, and you can always see something who's like yeah, this guy's just way better, or he's like, you can just see something. So it's probably a thing of they're watching and they're saying, this is like, we can't teach him this. We can't teach him to run this quickly with the ball. We can't teach him to do this. So this is why it's like a worth investment. Like I think Vinicius signed for Real Madrid and played less than 90 minutes of professional football, and that was like £35 million. So I think we've obviously maybe got an interest, but it just depends. Like I think you actually have to watch, like, you know what I mean? You have to watch him play.
We need to have scouts there, essentially, and I agree with you. Paul, you're a very funny guy. Very, very funny guy. For those of you that don't know, the 49ers don't play this week, meaning they can't lose a game. So, Paul, very funny guy, dickhead. But also to your question, Paul, Gavi and Pedri have €1 billion release clauses. The reason they have that is because it's required by Spanish law. All of the guys that are in La Liga need to have a release clause in one way or another, which is why when they give it to the young guys, they say billion, and then they'll end up selling them for 40, 50, 60 million, and they just people don't pay it, which I think is a fantastic way to go about it. Have a release clause there and you make people actually buy them. But that's just my opinion on that. But it is nearly that time. We have one more topic that I want to get to that I've been itching to get to. And before we do so, I just want to go through some housekeeping of the like and subscribe. You know the story at this stage. It helps us out massively. We really want to get to 10K, hopefully before the next transfer window. It really helps out the channel. We have make sure you have your bell notification on as well for all future videos and streams. We're live here from 7:30 every night, UK time, and we'll also have our post-game stream at about 6 o'clock straight after the game against Luton on Sunday. So stick around for that as well. And if you have any ideas about what other videos you want us to do, drop it in the comments after the stream. Excuse me. After the stream has ended, because it won't show up if you do it now, but it always does help. Thank you guys so much for all the support so far. One thing that GMUs mentions here, will I do my next stream in Soboslai's red robe from Sunday? I'm pretty sure that will get age restricted. I'm not going to lie. So as much as I would love to do that, I'm pretty sure to get age restricted. Nobody needs to see this head.
Get some candles behind you.
Yeah, I get some candles behind me. I'll smoke a cigar and have a whiskey and I'll sit here all sexy. Yeah, no, I'm definitely not doing that. I'm not going to hold myself out for you, Jamie. How dare you? But on to our last topic of today, which is the absolute wonderkid that is Jarrell Quansah, the Virgil van Dijk regen, as we like to call him. It is absolutely a blessing to see a young player that's 20 years old coming through and playing as if he's 10 years older than he actually is. He's fantastic. I just took down a couple of his stats and I want to read them out. So far this season, a 75% tackle win rate, which is bonkers for a 20-year-old who's played in Premier League games, Europa League games, and Cup games as well, as we've seen against Bournemouth. He was fantastic against Bournemouth. And then as well, he also has, it's similarly to how Fabinho was in the CDM role and how Matip is now in his centre-back role. He wins 2/3 of his duels. He's a phenomenal centre-back. It's fantastic to watch him play. And I fully believe that the composure that he has for a 20-year-old is absolutely nuts. Like, you don't see a 20-year-old. Like, his first game, I thought when he came on in his first game against Newcastle, we were down to 10 men and we needed to see, and I'm not sure if he came on when we were 1-0 down or we were 1-1 or if he was coming on to bring in to help us secure the draw, and then Darwin Núñez does what Darwin Núñez does and causes utter chaos. But he has saved Liverpool about £60 million. Carter, from the start of the season up until now, would he be your young player of the year for Liverpool so far, given that we have the likes of Harvey Elliott, Ben Doak, Curtis Jones would still fall under that category, I believe. I think he's only 21 at the moment. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think he's a shoe-in so far and a head and shoulders above all the other young players in the team at the moment. What do you think?
I think I would say yes. I think when it comes down to it, if you were going to give it, like how the award is sort of given, I might give it to Harvey. But when you actually think, like, Harvey's made his debut at 15, like, this is Quansah's first year. Like, Harvey is a young player, but he's not a young player. Like,
Yeah, he's not a rookie.
Quansah
Like.
he's not a rookie. Like, that's why I kind of dislike those kind of awards, because I think Sterling had played for 7 years and was still eligible to win Young Player of the Year. And like Bellingham, I think, can win the Young Player of the whatever Ballon d'Or thing for 6 more years. Like, you're not a young player. Like, I think Quansah's just been so impressive. Like, because we've all probably been burned. Like, I wasn't a super Billy Cometio fan, but you obviously think he's a big lad. He might, and you think Sepp van der Berg, he does decently on loan. He's a big lad. He's quick. He's almost a bit actually like Mickey van der Ven when you think about it. But
yeah.
I am just a bit like we've seen defenders come and look all right in certain games. So I'm still hesitant, but I do just think, yeah, as you said, we've got a young sort of superstar in our hands. But I just wouldn't want Liverpool to go, this is fine. I'd still, if Matip goes, just with Gomez's injury history and Konate's, we still do need, because even then I think Quansah can play. Quansah could deputise at fullback. Like, I think we still need one. Like, I would hate for him to break through and sort of Klopp be like, oh no, we're fine. Like, that's my only concern. If he goes, Bajcetic just played centre-half at youth level and all this, and then we just get stuck with like 2 injury-prone centre-backs, a 30-something-year-old Van Dijk and Quansah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's I'd still like some reinforcements in the centre back. But I think he could be Virgil van Dijk's replacement. In my own opinion, I think Virgil stays for another year, maybe 2, maybe just runs out his contract and retires, maybe signs a new incentivized one that is lesser on the per week bill. But I think Quansah has all of the tools to be able to get to where we want him to be. I think he can be absolutely phenomenal. Chad, I'll ask yourself the same question. Give me a couple of thoughts on him as your player. Do you think that Quansah so far is a head and shoulders above everybody else for the Young Player of the Year award as a Liverpool player, not as a Premier League thing, but just as a Liverpool player? Because I think there's obviously other players that are going to obviously finish ahead of him. Like, I think Haaland is still eligible for Young Player of the Year, which I think is hilarious. I think if you win it once, you shouldn't be able to win it again, in my own opinion. Like, it's kind of like Rookie of the Year award, I think, is what it should be done as. What do you, Quansah so far this year, has he impressed you? Has he solidified himself that he could be a future starting centre back for the next 12 years for Liverpool?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this whole season, the way he's composed on the ball, the way his ability to stand in the line and make sure that he defends the back line, the goalkeeper, the way he communicates and pushes out when he needs to push out, pull back when he needs to stay back. He's been the Rookie of the Season especially for Liverpool, 100%. Yeah, he has been. I mean, Carter's gave out some names of players that we've brought in that we have similar ideas of. Okay, this guy is going to be the great. Like Billy Camacho, you got Stefan Bajcetic. Even think about Reece Williams. Reece Williams came into the season. He played a phenomenal season, saved us for the COVID season. We played about more than half the season. And, even next to Nat Phillips, and we all thought, okay, this guy is going to be the next defender. And then he went on loan again. But there's something about Quansah that just looks different about, Reece James, who you can say is the closest thing to academy graduate at centre-back position, where you can see, okay, maybe he has potential to become a starting centre-back in the future. But Quansah looks like he's ready-made. He looks like he's comfortable in the position, he's comfortable in the team. And what's great about it is the games that he's playing in, the FA Cup, the League Cup games, the Europa League games where he's playing against. Yes, there are European teams, and especially when it comes to Europa League, but they are not big name teams. They're not, facing against the Real Madrid, Barcelona, the top tier European teams. You're playing against Toulouse and Union, where you can still have a good game. These guys are still going to give you a good game, but they're not going to outrun you and they're not going to run over you. So it's good games for him to test his ability on the team and good games to allow him to develop. You look at the Leicester City game where he's absolutely phenomenal. Leicester City was a Premier League team last season. They're top of the league in the Championship. But at the same time, he's still being able to sit in the team and defend the way he defends, be able to be a presence there and to make sure that nothing happens at the back. The game against Bournemouth again, shitty conditions, they were playing basically a hurricane, but he was still able to compose himself under horrible conditions. He was still able to be be in the team and be solid in the team. I mean, you look at the cutback the cutback he did against Bournemouth as well, when he had Cliver on the touchline. What you know what I mean? Like, that's, you expect that from a senior member of the team that can go, okay, you nothing, I'm gonna cut you now, I'm gonna make you look silly. He did that against Leicester as well, where he took the ball away and he went on to make an assist for Jota. These things are expected of senior players that have been in the system, they've known the top level of football. We expect that from them. And to have a youngster do that, it's like you said, saving us a lot of money. Again, to Carter's point, I still think that we need to go out for reinforcements just to make sure that we have senior players that have been in the team for a much longer period to jump in case Matip leaves at the end of the season, and in case Van Dijk, God forbid it doesn't happen, but in case he does get an injury next season, or at the end of, going towards the end of the season this season, your guy Ignacio is still available. We've been linked to him. Hopefully your prayers have been answered. In January we can get him. There's also Nkapie. So we need to get I feel like we need to not allow ourselves to get too greedy and get too trigger happy, and allow Quansah to play in the team a lot more. And then, injuries start to happen and he starts to play badly, and then he loses confidence. Let's build him up slowly, allow him to play these small games, build his confidence. Let's not rush with this guy. Let's not rush with him. Keep him similar to Bajcetic. Obviously, with Bajcetic, it's a different story in terms of his body growing and not his talent. But allow Quansah to develop and allow him to be the best team, be the best player that he can be. Not shove him into the first team automatically just because he's having a couple of good games against lower teams. So for me, that's the biggest thing, is to allow him to develop himself, allow him to develop, and then bring in Ignacio, Nkapie, senior players that can fit into the team straight away in case Van Dijk does decide to go, or he has an injury, Matip eventually at the end of the season. You know what I mean? So yeah, we have a gem. We have an absolute gem in our hands. We can't throw it away. Just keep the gem.
Yeah. You have a similar opinion, Carter? Just we've a gem, let him build slowly, let him grow slowly, let him grow into the role that he's eventually going to end up playing, and just don't fuck it up, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, and I honestly actually think, sort of for resting in the big games, I think if you look now, because there's no Kane, there's only one real sort of, in terms of for like a young defender, you've got to learn like what you can get away with and what you can't. And sort of that's sort of, I think, always the main thing for a centre half. It's like, how far can you sort of bend the rules when you defend? Like, how physical can you get? And if you look in, there's probably only when Tony comes back, Tony's the only real now. Maybe Tony, Watkins would be the only two, not including Haaland, but two strikers where I'd think they might give him a really rough time of it. Just because they're so big, they're strong, they're quick, they're technically really good. But if we played Wolves, that's Matheus Cunha. If you play Everton, Calvert-Lewin and Beto, but obviously not the best, not as good as the other two, like Palace, Mateta, and who's the other one who played for Odsonne Edouard. Like, there's just not, I don't think there's not that many strikers that if you put Quansah against them, you're going to go, if you could have a really bad time of it. Like Antonio's getting on. Probably a few years ago, you said you don't want him playing Antonio just because he's such a nuisance. Because I think now for like a young defender, playing sort of more pace and space sides and transition, and you're playing more against, like, you're intercepting the ball maybe more than going up and trying to head it. Like, I think he'll very easily like slip in. Because I get what you mean with the Van Dijk, but I almost think he looks a lot like Gomez pre all the injuries. Like, so quick over the ground, good on the ball. Like, I think he's going to be really good, but I definitely see him being maybe more of a Robin than a Batman. But obviously, I mean, he's going to be like a very good Robin at that sense.
Yeah, I agree with you. But
also, just to add there, sorry, Stephen, the system that we played against Bournemouth, where Gomez stayed back instead of playing an inverted right back, we actually had the back four, the 3-3 going forward. It actually suited him better because in the inverted role, he has to do what Konate does, where he has to shift into the right-hand side, and that movement is going to cut him. It's going to make him more tired and more susceptible to, making mistakes, silly mistakes that you normally wouldn't have done. And to have that back, and if we can go back into that back four, it'll help him even better because he has a structured back four. He has a proper line, and he has support especially on that right-hand side, because Trent would have played in an inverted role and left him alone. And most teams would have targeted that. And, then you start seeing, okay, now there's about 50 balls coming over to you. You're not going to, a lot of them, the percentage is not going to add up for you. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. So the system that we played in, it helps him a lot. And I feel like if you can get to that place where you can leave him alone and, not worry about him and know that, okay, even if we move Trent up into the inverted role, he can do the job for us in that position. I think that's when we start to see that he's ready for the jersey and he's ready for the starting position.
Yeah, I think he's going to be absolutely fantastic. And Haylor makes a bit of a comment here that I think we're actually addressing as well. We will be, it's embarrassing when we have a player like Quansah fall into our head and we've no clue how good he is. And we need somebody looking at an expert on the Liverpool youths. We agree with you, and that's something that's been discussed internally with ourselves, and we're going to be looking into getting somebody that's doing videos on that and doing content on that going forward, getting so that we can look it up and come in stars, who's good, who's not good, that kind of a way. If you were to ask me right now, I would have a guess and say it is trainee only, if I was to guess, but I'm sure I'm probably wrong on that. But it is something that we do need to get in touch with, and it is something that is going to be coming up in the next couple of weeks. Hopefully, once we get that sorted, we'll be looking into the youth squad a little bit more. But we have gone well over time at this stage. We're normally only supposed to do an hour, but we do love talking about our Liverpool players, and Mbappe took up nearly half of this goddamn stream. But that is what it is, because I'm pretty sure if we sign him, the internet is going to break. But that has been us from LFC Transfer Room. Thank you guys so much for joining us. And just a final bit of housekeeping before we finish. If you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe and help us reach 10,000 subscribers. If you have done that already, we appreciate it so much and we love you so much for that. Please make sure to leave a like on the video if you haven't done so already. It helps us out massively. And if you have done all that, just a final thing, make sure your bell notification is on for all future streams and videos. We'll be live again from tomorrow from 7:30 for our Luton match preview, and there will be a Player of the Month award coming out from ourselves. I'll be doing that myself, hopefully in the next day or two, and there will also be our other segment that will be coming up soon, which will be our in case you missed it, where we'll go over all of the week's topics. So if you miss a stream during the week, don't worry, you'll end up getting all the topics that we would have discussed, the bigger ones, in one tight little video that will be it's at the start of the week. Our first one was done this Monday. Go back and watch it if you want. It goes over last week's 2 games, a couple of other bits, Luis Diaz's news, other things like that. And speaking of Luis Diaz, they found out that the gang that was associated with it all of a sudden turned around and were like, did we take him? We didn't know that. Like, God, you'd have to fear for them lower level guys that kidnapped Luis Diaz's parents, because the gang was like, no, fuck it, we don't want any of that publicity. Fucking take him back. But I know I make jokes about a terrible situation, but if you don't laugh, you'll cry. And Luis Diaz was seen in training today. I think it was mentioned by James earlier. He was laughing and smiling, but he hasn't really slept much. Klopp came out in his presser today, and if he's going to play against Luton, the decision is on Luis Diaz. But I'm pretty sure, I think Luis Diaz probably won't play on Sunday. We might not see him again until probably after the international break. Just that takes a toll on somebody mentally, and I couldn't even into what he's going through. But with that being said, thank you guys so much for joining us. It has been a wonderful evening from myself, from Chad, from Carter. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you again tomorrow for our post-game stream, or pre-game stream, excuse me.